So in the previous video, we saw a brief on the basic structure of the Indian Constitution and we saw the Shankari Prasad case. In this video, we'll be looking at Golaknath case and we'll be looking at Keshavananda Bharati case. These are very important. After the Shankari Prasad case came the Golaknath case in 1967. The constitutional validity of the 17th Amendment Act of 1964, which inserted certain state acts in the ninth schedule, was challenged. So, the constitutional validity of the 17th Amendment Act of 1964, which inserted certain state acts in the ninth schedule, was challenged in the Golaknath case. So, what was the verdict? The verdict was that the Supreme Court reserved its earlier verdict in the Shankari Prasad case. It now ruled that the fundamental rights are given a transcendental and immutable position, and hence the Parliament cannot abridge or take away any of these rights. So the position in Shankari Prasad was now reversed. In the Shankari Prasad case, the Supreme Court said that the Parliament had the power to amend the fundamental rights or even remove them. However, in the Golaknath case, the Supreme Court said that the fundamental rights have a transcendental and immutable position, and hence the Parliament cannot abridge or take away any of these rights. A Constitutional Amendment Act is also a law within the meaning of Article 13 and hence would be void for violating any of the fundamental rights. This is what the Supreme Court said in the Golaknath case, reversing its stand entirely from the Shankari Prasad case of 1951. This is perhaps one of the best examples of two contrary positions that the Supreme Court held, albeit with different bench strengths. It points to the faults within the judicial system. After all, judges are mere mortals of men and women. They make mistakes as well. This being the case, should they be allowed to make decisions of life and death? If not, what are the alternative ways to punish criminals? These are some questions that will become prominent in the decades to come, and these are important questions when you are looking at the GS4 paper like ethics. However, let's not digress. Back to the topic. The Parliament being itself reacted to the Golaknath case by inserting the 24th Amendment Act of 1971. This is also a very important Constitutional Amendment Act, that is the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1971 was inserted by the Parliament after the Golaknath case. The problem now was with Article 13, that is the definition of law, and with Article 368, that is the extent of power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution. These were the two articles that this Constitutional Amendment Act sought to change. The Parliament sought to clear it with the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. It declared that the Parliament has the power to abridge or take away any of the fundamental rights under Article 368, and such an act will not be law under the meaning of Article 13. So in direct contravention to the decision in Golaknath case, the Parliament introduced the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act that said that constitutional amendments will not be a law under the meaning of Article 13. So the Parliament has the power to abridge or take away any of the fundamental rights under Article 368 by amending the Constitution. Well, the Supreme Court was in no mood to be dictated on topics of such great importance. A compromise had to be reached between the judiciary and the Parliament, and the judiciary was just waiting for its chance. In the Keshavananda Bharati case of 1973, the validity of the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act was challenged. So what was the verdict in this case? The Supreme Court upheld the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. However, it laid down the doctrine of the basic structure. The Supreme Court ruled that the constituent power of Parliament under Article 368 does not enable it to alter the basic structure of the Constitution. So, the Supreme Court upheld the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. However, it said that the Parliament under its constituent power under Article 368 does not have the power to alter the basic structure of the Constitution. This means that the Parliament cannot abridge or take away a fundamental right that forms a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. After this, again, the government that was led by Indira Gandhi was in no mood to relent. the parliament reacted. The notorious Indira Gandhi government during the infamous emergency enacted the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which is sometimes dubbed as the mini constitution. So what were the major provisions of this act? This act amended Article 368 and declared that there is no limitation on the constituent power of the parliament, and no amendment can be questioned in any court on any ground, including that of contravention of any of the fundamental rights. So through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the Parliament amended Article 368 and it declared that there is no limitation on the constituent power of Parliament and no amendment can be questioned in any court on any ground, including that of the contravention of any of the fundamental rights. This meant that the Parliament could enact any constitutional amendment to change any part of the Constitution, and this could not be reviewed by the judiciary, and this could not be questioned by the judiciary. The Supreme Court had to right a wrong that was committed by the Parliament. This happened in the Minerva Mills case of 1980. The Supreme Court invalidated this provision of the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in the Minerva Mills case. It said that judicial review was a basic structure of a constitution. So the Supreme Court in the Minerva Mills case said that judicial review was part of the basic structure of the Constitution, and whatever was said in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act saying that the laws or constitutional amendments under Article 368 could not be challenged in a court of law was invalidated. So in the Minerva Mills case, the Supreme Court said that judicial review is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. Pointing to the ridiculous amendment, the Supreme Court said since the Constitution has conferred a limited amending power on the Parliament, the Parliament cannot, under the exercise of that limited power, enlarge that very power into an absolute power. Indeed, a limited amending power is one of the basic features of the Constitution, and therefore the limitations on that power cannot be destroyed. In other words, Parliament cannot, under Article 368, expand its amending power so as to acquire for itself the right to repeal or abrogate the Constitution or to destroy its basic features. The donee of a limited power cannot, by the exercise of that power, convert the limited power into an unlimited one. This is a beautifully elucidated paragraph by the Supreme Court. You can pause the video and read it, or you can also go to the notes section and read this. So what the Supreme Court is basically saying is this: if you find a magic lamp with a genie like Aladdin did with the genie, and the genie grants you 3 wishes, you cannot use one of your wishes to ask the genie to grant you 1,000 more wishes. So you cannot take a limited amending power and give yourself an unlimited amending power. This is what the Supreme Court said. There was only one question left now. Would the basic structure apply retrospectively or not? We will see this in the next video when we discuss the Vaman Rao case of 1981. Thank you.